Okay, welcome everybody to the Zoom lesson this morning with Gary Smith. I hope everybody's keeping well and getting some sunshine despite the difficult times we're all going through. Just very briefly, for those of you who haven't joined us before, Gary Smith's a former European Tour winner, also a Golf Monthly Top 25 coach. He's recently achieved the distinction of becoming a PGA Master Professional. In fact, one of only 48 players in the history of the game to have ever achieved this. As an England elite coach, Gary has also worked with some of the brightest talent ever to have appeared in the world of golf. This includes names such as Danny Willett, Keith Wood, Tommy Fleetwood, as well as Justin Rose. So without further ado, I'm just going to ask Gary to kick off. A number of people have submitted questions and we'll run through those initially. And as soon as we've covered those, there will be an opportunity for people to raise any additional questions and I'll open up the floor a little bit. So we expect to be on for about 45 minutes. It may go slightly longer, but definitely not over an hour. Just give Gary a bit of a break after that period of time. Gary...
yeah, the voice going.
Yeah, just to kick in. And if people, I don't think people can unmute themselves, but I would just ask, please don't, even if you can, because we just want to keep Gary center stage and not disrupt, obviously, the presentation. Gary, to kick off, I have a question, a 16 handicapper, a question from Rupert, who is, he's a little flat at the top of the backswing. And Gary, I think you indicated that strength and flexibility work would help him to get there. And Rupert was asking, can you recommend any specific stretches that would help with that?
Okay, right. If we're talking about improve, hi everyone, by the way, thanks for joining me today. It's lovely that you're here. And as Jerry says, I hope you're all keeping well and bearing up under the strain. But the idea of this is basically just to take you away for an hour or so, or half an hour, and let's get into golf because it'll come back, and I'm sure it will be, pretty soon. Let's hope back out on the golf course enjoying it. If the weather's like this, we'll definitely be enjoying it. So that's what this is all about, right? Rupert, and I think Nigel's listening in. Hi, Nigel. This is for you guys, but it applies to probably everyone, really. A flat backswing or a backswing that is kind of behind you across your chest, that means that the angle of attack in your delivery for anything other than a driver is a problem. Because as you get flat on the backswing, your body dives underneath and that brings in the area behind the ball into play. So how do you get an improved backswing? How do you get a higher backswing? And how do you get a more powerful backswing? Because it's actually all the same thing. So we'll start at the beginning. To get a good backswing, you need a good base. So in other words, if I stand to the ball with a lot of knee flex and my spine angle is too vertical, I can't get my hands and arms up. I'm not going to get the club in a position to hit down on the ball and deliver it correctly. So you always start with high pelvis, certainly with your iron shots, not to sit back, spine angle a little more over the ball, almost beyond the ball, so your arms now can hang correctly. So now we're in a position where the arm plane can set the club up. If you don't, in other words, if you change that during the swing, if your spine changes, your plane of your arms change. So it's basically working from this setup. Now I'm having to work all these muscles to keep this position, because if I were to relax now, I'd go forward. That is exactly where you want to be. Now I've got a little pro stance that I use sometimes, which actually illustrates that. You can use a block of wood. So in other words, if you get that balance point correct, balls of the left foot mainly, certainly nothing towards the heels, then your spine can sit on top. Now your arms can hang and you can set the club correctly. So that's number one. Number two, if you then set the club correctly here, I'll do it this way. So from this setup, which is pretty well dynamic, it's not an easy thing to get to, but it's important. Now the arms hang down, now the shaft sets up, now I'm in a climbing potential. The hands and arms can keep going. Now, the little thing I've got here, and any of you can do this, is a quite simple little bungee thing. Now, I've got a contraption. You can use your belt, no problem, but I've got a little contraption that I use, and I've been involved in for a little business point of view a few years back. So basically, I've got my grandson William's club here. It's a bit short for obvious reasons. But what I'm going to do is resistance training. I'm going to do some resistance. So that means subject to the setup, subject to this backswing position. Now I'm going to have some stretch to the top. This is hard work. So the idea of resistance training, if I were to do that 10 or 20 times with this band and stretch, if I take it off, suddenly, woo, up she goes. No problem at all. I don't have the resistance, so the muscle memory is now built in to try and stretch, and that's exactly what I do. So those three things, resistance training, you can use a TheraBand, you can use some kind of elastic, or even this simple bungee thing you can get from Halfords for a few pennies, really, they're not much. So that's a great, great drill, and you can also use it equally in your forward swing. So let's assume that you've got a good backswing. Now you can actually work the resistance band in the forward swing. Hard work, it should be hard work. And I'll leave you with this point, Rupert and Nigel, that a backswing, arguably it's the launch pad to hit great shots. It is where good shots come from. If you don't have a good backswing, the chances are you can't hit a good shot. So the backswing is the most demanding physical part of the game, of the swing. I'll say that again, the backswing is the most physically demanding part of the golf swing. To work stability, not to make it easy and comfortable, but to stretch and have the time to get there is the most important and the most physically demanding. So if you can get that priority in your head, you can start playing better golf.
Thanks, Gary. Next question, just to keep it rolling, is from a 9 handicapper, Peter, who I think, like many golfers, has a difficulty in the short game getting closer down in 2 shots from about 50 yards in. He's also worried about thinning wedges from about 50 yards in. So any recommendations or tips?
Okay, the one thing to remember about thinning is when, let me get a golf ball here. As we all know, we've all done it at times. Thinning is when the leading edge of the golf club, this sharp thing here, actually delivers the club probably above the equator, above the center of the ball. And in my experience, thinning a wedge, if you stand, as I would suggest you do, and all my videos show this in the academy, if you stand with very little shaft lean, if any, and you have then shaft lean, your arc is naturally being reduced. The width of the arc of the swing from where your sort of sternum is, from your body, if you then have loads of shaft lean, you're going to narrow the arc and you're going to hit it thin. So shaft lean, in other words, if you stand here and you deliver with your hands well forward, you're going to thin it. And then you're going to be diving down to the ball and doing all sorts of things that you don't really want. So remember that is 90+% of the reason you can fall back on shots to do the same thing. But in my experience, that is where you don't want to be. So as long as you can understand you've set your arc correctly for chipping, pitching, bunker shots with a nice vertical shaft, not leaning, you're trying to deliver the club head straight back into that position with the right hand, you're going to bottom that club out. And if your arms then extend nice and freely, you're going to nicely graze the ground. That's subject to you not moving off the ball, not dropping, not lifting, but staying centered, rotating around a center point and allowing those arms and that right hand to deliver that club head under the ball so you can then expose the sole, the bounce, the slider. So remember, that's the thing, that's the problem. And the explanation is this is a light grip. This is a very heavy club head. If you try and drive and rush the club, you're only going to rush one thing, the grip. This is much easier to move than this. So if I'm going to rush anything, this is what happens. What do I then get? Shaft lean, thin shots. So don't rush, turn, set the energy, deliver the sole into the back of the ball and just under it, allowing the bounce to expose, and then just let the club turn through with your body. That's why you thin shots.
Okay, thanks, Gary. Next question from Stuart, a 16 handicapper. It's more a question of motivation, Gary. I think he's been coming back after a layoff. Just querying just trying to get the energy up. It's really a motivational type question, which I think you're familiar with.
Okay, Stuart, it's Stuart, isn't it?
Yeah.
Stuart, I'm sorry I got your email, I read it a couple of times. Sorry to hear you had a lot of physical problems, health problems, and you know, that's the last thing any of us need, really. But if you're talking about wanting to get back into golf, you're talking more psychology than anything else, but you can do practical things too. So my take on any kind of situation where you're losing motivation is to have short, mid, and long-term goals. Now, I worked with a fantastic sports psychologist for about 15 years in county golf and in England golf, Professor Brian Hemmings, and him and I teamed up and we did a lot of work together, and I thought he was just amazing. And with the people he works with, and he worked and still does work with a number of the best players, Tommy, Fleetwood, and all these guys, he was motivating them with goals, 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 goals. So what I would suggest, first of all, is depending on where your game is or where it was, think about short-term goals. Start with saying, in a week's time, I'm going to adopt the great grip. I'm going to get the perfect grip for golf, and I'm going to change. When I've got the perfect grip now and I've got used to it, I'm going to set a date to get that perfect grip so it feels comfortable. It could be next Friday, 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to pick that golf club up and I'm going to make sure that that grip is great, because that's the foundation for good golf. If you've got a bad grip, you're really going to struggle. And then you'd have smaller gains, like short game gains. I'm going to learn how to chip the ball correctly into a basket. Then I'm going to test myself. And once I've got that, and I've got a date to be able to chip better or pitch better, you can use plastic balls in the garden. Then you gradually sort of ramp up the pressure. So you'd say, right, first of all, I want to chip it nicely, 5 times out of 10, 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever. Then I want to test myself into targets. And then I want to really challenge myself under pressure. And you would build those little goals bit by bit, tick off the dates and say, have I achieved it? If I have, great. If not, why not? And then build up this whole process that says, let's say come September the 1st, I'm going to have a different golf game. I'm going to go out with new enthusiasm and enjoyment and expectation, and I'll be ready to really play and enjoy it. That would be my take on motivation for anyone really, but especially you.
Thanks, Gary. 2 questions from Lester, a 7 handicapper. He mentioned that his grip pressure tightens in air impact, and I know, Gary, that you suggest that the grip pressure on left-right hand is typically a 1 or a 2 out of 10. Yeah. And he's finding it difficult to achieve that because obviously it tightens in air impact. Can you recommend any drills to help?
Yeah, sure. I will say that all this stuff I'm talking about now, pretty well all of it, is on the Academy video content. You know, there's 3 or 4 hours stuff on there, and if you kind of find your way through, and if you need any help, maybe Jerry or Steve can kind of guide you in that respect, but it's all on there. But when it talks about grip pressure, it's really important, you know. This word control, we all want to control the club. The truth is you can't control the club. The club shouldn't be in control. You've got to have enough grip pressure so the club doesn't slide out of your hands and fly 100 yards in the air. Sure, but other than that, you really shouldn't grip it tight. And you know, I will say this, I kind of want to empower my students. You out there, everyone out there has the ability to control what you feel you should or shouldn't do. You can control it. You can control yourself and your mind and your physicality. So if you have a mindset, and this is where I would distinguish talk pros against amateur golfers. Talk pros are fantastic at diving into changes. They get a change that they've been told by their coaches, explained that this change is going to be good for you, it's going to make you more successful. They will absolutely give it 100%. The amateur golfer tends not to do that so well. So get that in your head. You're going to make a change, make it good. So grip pressure, you're in control of how tight you hold it, right? You can control the brain. But when it comes to understanding grip pressure, I would suggest everyone starts with a 10 out of 10 grip in both hands. Pretty well as tight, kill it, as tight as you can go. Then go to 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. You can now feel the blood flowing a little bit. You've got a bit of feeling. 4, 3, 2. I'm going to keep in my right hand the 2. 1 on my left hand. Yeah, now I've got it. Right, now it's your choice whether you want to keep that grip or not. Because if you've got that grip and the club's not going to slide out of your hand, and you're going to move your body nicely and allow the club to set, which you can do with a relaxed grip, you've got all the energy you need to hit pretty well any golf shot. So if it's a little chip, I'm in control of my grip. I can hold it tighter if I decide to, but I strongly advise you don't. Now, the reality is you come into the ball, everyone gets a little bit tense. Again, it's a choice, but if you're 1 and 2 and you go to 2 and 3 or 3 and 4, it's not a disaster. If you're 5 or 6 or 7 and you go to 8s and 9s, then the club's dead. It's in effect not going to work. So try the 10 down to 1. Keep it and be committed to that. If it's going to help you, and I know it will, that's what you have to do. That's what I do under pressure. I would say this to finish off. The more pressure I'm under, the more I relax and soften my grip, because I know it'll help me.
Gary, if I could just ask you a question, it was just something I spotted recently. I was watching one of the Masters. I can't even remember who it was. It was on Sky, and it was a tour player. I don't remember. But he was talking about his short game grip and grip pressure. And he was actually saying, if let's say the long irons or a driver is closer to 8 or 9 out of 10, he was saying for the shorter chips and wedges and so on, he was probably closer to a 4.
Yeah. In reality, I think that's true.
Yeah.
I will say this. It depends on the quality of your grips. If your grips are a bit shiny, and we're not very good at changing our grips, you want to go to your pro and make sure tour pros change them probably every few weeks. But if they get a bit sweaty, whatever, make sure your grip is really secure and it's got nice surface to grip. But I think if you start at 1 and 2, remember, short game is a bit different. If you want that club to start to work, and I will distinguish here the club golfer to the tour pro. We're all very good at watching tour pros and saying, what do they do? I want to do that. That's complete nonsense, because we don't have the work ethic, we don't have the body, we don't have the mind, we don't have the abilities, we don't have the, you can go on and on and on. So don't get too sucked into what they do. But what I'm saying, if you can allow that club head to have some life, to have some freedom together with the body turn, you've got everything you need to produce the energy into the club that's going to deliver the ball at distance. So, yeah, you can go to 3s and 4s. I mean, sure, I do sometimes, but, that's okay too.
Okay, Gary, just a final question then from Lester. Club face impact for short game tends to be towards the heel.
Oh,
and
yeah.
He finds when he lays off a bit, it defaults to that more, and he's just asking.
Yes.
Obviously, when he's practicing the linear approach well, he's getting it more central, but it tends to default towards the heel. So any drills you could recommend to help with that?
Yeah, well, this is interesting really to me. I would say 95% of golfers hit the ball in short game off the toe. So is it Lester, isn't it? Lester?
Yeah.
You're in the 5% bracket really. And they hit the ball off the toe because they stand open. I watched a very interesting video, a couple of them yesterday, one by Luke Donald, talking about don't stand open, don't have your hands forward, don't have the ball back, right? I've been saying this for 15 years in videos all over the place. This guy had 2.7 views about this, but it's all out there on my stuff. So, don't stand open, don't cut across the ball and get the ball coming in that way, even in a bunker. Don't like that, and good players don't do it either, not now. So if you're hitting the ball off the heel, it tells me that your swing path is actually coming in to out. So I would use the corridor. I've got a section in my video talking about corridor of success, which is you put 2 lines, basically like that, either side. You probably have them about 4 balls width apart, and then you track that club head back and forward. And if you're hitting one of the 2 poles, in your case, it may be the inside or the out, I'm not sure. But then you can start saying, right, that path needs to go much straighter. And now I can start working, because it should be a straight back and in path, a straight through and in path. That's what it should be. So you could also put little marks, little sort of felt tip, whatever, long as it's not permanent here, just to show where you were hitting off the face, that kind of thing. But to me, using the corridor 4 balls, start with 4, it's pretty wide, go to 3. With the best players I coach, we're talking about 2 ball width, which is tiny. And if you can come through that without hitting either pole or either shaft, you know your path is good.
Yeah, just to add, Gary, I know you've mentioned the corridor, and just for those who are less familiar with Gary's approach to teaching short game, the linear approach, it's all covered in GarySmithGolfAcademy.com. So if you just log into that, you'll be able to get, I know we've many members on board already, but we are running a special offer at the moment for any people who'd like to join the Academy. Gary, next question. I think you have it there memorized, because actually I don't seem to have it in front of me, but it was from Keith. Keith Patterson, I think you've got that.
Keith Patterson. Now, Keith, great to hear from you. Haven't seen you for a fair bit up there in lovely Durham, I think it is. Let me just see. Oh, here we are. Right, 30 to 50 yards, better contact. When he actually has a swing that changes direction. So this is what Keith's telling me. He actually chips and pitches better when his club goes outside, reroutes on the inside, and becomes shallow. Truth of the matter is, Keith and everyone else, I don't really care how you do it. It doesn't worry me whether you swing the club this way or that way, as long as you have the ability to strike it consistently and hit the ball in the direction you want to hit it as often as you should and as straight as you should. And if you can do that, I really don't mind at all what you do, how you swing, how you hold it. But my common sense tells me that if you've got a swing that's going to move considerably, and that's the other point, I would say, Keith, does it actually go outside and does it actually come inside? Because there's feel and real in this. What we think we do and what we actually do are invariably not the same thing. So you need another eye to see or a video to really understand that. But I would ask the question that if you've got a motion in your swing that needs a reaction, if your action is to do that and this is your reaction, it's a more confusing way of playing the game. You know, do you need to do it? But if it works, absolutely keep doing it, because it may not be quite as extreme as you think it is. And it's not for me to say it's right or wrong. It's for the ball that says, is it right or wrong for you? That's the key.
Thanks, Gary. Next question from John, Gary. He's struggling, obviously, to practice. He can't practice bunker play during the current lockdown. And the question revolves around distance control, just improving distance control when playing bunker shots. So I know while he may struggle to practice, any tips or recommendations in distance control out of bunkers?
Well, clearly bunker play is a problem. If you've got a nice garden, there was a video the other day, I think Luke Donald again, he's a bit of an idol to me, because he's been the world's best and his short game is phenomenal. And he actually does a huge majority of what I like to do. So, you know, good on him for kind of, you know, doing what I think works best. So if we're talking about bunker play, he in his garden, he put some sand, like this much, and he put a ball on it and hit a bunker shot. You can, of course, because you don't need a load of sand, you just need enough to hit that little area. So if you've got a garden and you don't do what I did the other day with Carol, my wife, who was doing a little video with a golf ball and it flew over her head and she wasn't too happy about it, but it did go next door in the garden and it was a brand new ball and I think I probably lost it. But that's another story. So if you kind of have a garden that's big enough and you use some sand and you can practice bunker shots, but you know, the line drill is massively important. The line drill, which is when you get in a bunker, let me do it over here, you can draw a line like this in a bunker and like that. So let's assume this is a golf ball. You draw a line like that, you draw one line, and a line like that for the target, and then you get another line here to denote where you want to hit the ball, where you want to hit the sand. So I get my ball position left heel, I get the shaft going through this line, and I draw the line in the sand all the way along here, and I'll be going up and down the line saying, right, where am I delivering the club into the sand? Where is it? If your line drill shows that you're inconsistent with your connection, which could be motion, could be dropping, whatever it may be, you need to send a video and let me look at that. If your line drill is inconsistent, it's going to be inconsistent with the ball. So look at your line drill, practice, I get that good, and then I gradually put balls here, through 4 or 5, put the line here in the sand, and see if I can connect that line. The line drill is great, it's on the video, it explains it all, but I think the line drill is the best thing you can do when you get a chance to practice, and everything else about the posture in a bunker, the balance point, whoa, onto the toes, the arms hanging deep, a really nice tall posture, a more distance from the ball than most people like to stand for a bunker. I'm invariably moving people away from the ball so they can throw the club head through the target rather than pull the grip. They're the key things, all on the video, but that's what I would work on. When you get a chance, look at the line drill and then build it into your game.
Gary, thanks. Separate question from Nicholas regarding indoor training and practice, which obviously is an area that's close to everyone's hearts at the moment because there are too many options to get outside. So if there are any specific tips you can cover on that, Gary? I know the Golf Academy, you've a lot of that in there already, but just for those maybe who haven't even accessed the Academy yet, what kind of tips would you recommend for practicing indoors?
Okay, well, I'm going to do a little putting one that I've got here. You can get all this stuff online or stuff very similar to it. So what I've got here is a little putting sort of a putting arc, because the best putters work the putter on a very slight inward arc. That's just common sense. Very few putters are square to square. Some are, but very few now. So there's my arc, which is built in this putting arc machine. It's quite a solid thing. I'm going to put the ball in the position right opposite this fin. Now I'm going to say that's the direction I want the ball to go, which is very much parallel to this. So there's the direction. Now I'm going to get a couple of, these are sort of hopefully unbreakable cups, and I'm going to put these around the 1.5 width apart. Now you can use anything you like. So we're going to start with a not overly impossible gap. So this is my sort of a drill I use an awful lot when I'm coaching putting. And I'm going to put a golf club here to stop the ball. So now basically, I'm just going to practice taking my stance. I've got my ball position here. It's just ahead of center. I've got the putter head. This is about 20 inches from the ball where my gate, I call this a gate drill. I'm going to practice the gate drill. Now I'm going to put the ball in position. And now I'm going to see, can I putt through the gate? Yes. So if I can do that 10 times in a row on a pretty narrow gate, and you can put the gate closer or further apart, you know your putting action is good. You know that fundamentally you're starting the ball on the right line. Doesn't tell you if you've got the right pace, but it tells you that your stroke mechanics are decent. And this is also very good for stroke mechanics because it gives me my line, gives me my base. You can even put a little line through your belt loops to check that everything is good. Your eyes are going to be more or less over the ball, maybe just inside. I can probably like them a little bit inside the ball, which is fine because it helps, it promotes the arc. But this little gate drill is great. You can obviously look at chipping and pitching. You can do all that kind of stuff, and there's no reason why you shouldn't do loads of that. So let's just say fundamental indoor practice to targets. These are plastic little golf balls. I'm going to do this, otherwise I'm going to dig a probably channel here. I'd look at the posture, I'd look at getting the head up and the arms hanging, and I'd look at fundamentals about how I can practice my little chip shots with plastic balls, eventually to targets. And I do a lot of reading. I do a lot of reading and things like the grip, secure that. So there are things you can do indoors that really doesn't mean huge expense or breaking windows. So I would work on all those sort of things and do a little bit of reading on psychology as well. To me, that's kind of where it all starts.
Okay, thanks, Gary. Gary, I know you did a video recently, which we haven't released yet, on putting. It was a very simple tip to improve your setup and posture. In fact, you even mentioned on the video that a number of tour players use it as well. Could you just cover that briefly for people? I know we'll be pushing that out through social media soon. You know, where you were literally holding the club out straight out in front of you.
Oh, this is
Your
putting,
elbows
yeah,
in.
sure.
Yeah, it was just getting a better routine to set up.
Yeah, so if we combine this with I think, a really excellent sort of routine on how to stand correctly to the ball. Number one, you want the stance width sensible. There's not a lot of motion involved, so you don't need a wide stance, but you still want to be really stable because, you know, if you start that ball half an inch offline because there's too much motion, and I guarantee you that if someone were to hold your knees in position during a putting stroke, either your partner or your husband or someone very close to you, because you'd have to do it from behind here, then you'd be amazed how stiff and how stationary that would feel. But I bet there's motion with all of you in your putting. Best players don't do that. But this is the drill I like. Shaft horizontal, right into the sternum, having stood tall like this. Adopt your grip. I like both thumbs right down the front, and I don't mind if you overlap or whatever, separate, that doesn't really worry me, but I want both thumbs down the middle. So in effect, you've got your hands like this. Okay, now I want the putter head to go heavy. So you can see now it's going up the lifelines, going up the forearms of my wrist, so they're an extension of my wrist. Okay, now I get the elbows in and I pull that right into my sternum, into here. Okay, so it's putter head heavy, through the lifelines, thumbs down the middle, elbows in, pull the elbows into the chest, and now you just bend from the hips. So straight away now, I'm in a position where if you look on tour, you'll see on most of the guys, nice base, no motion at all with the lower body. All I'm doing is rocking the shoulders back and forward. And the less motion you have, the better. So this is to adopt a really good, this is always horizontal, a really good drill to really set up to that base to keep everything uniform. To me, that's a fantastic putting drill.
Thanks, Gary. If I could just say to people, we're practically there now in terms of the questions that were already submitted. I've just got one more. If anyone, just during this session, and we have a little bit more to go, if there are any specific questions they'd like to raise with Gary, please just enter them in the chat box, which you'll see.
Yeah, far away, everyone.
And I should be able to unmute you, and you can even speak directly to Gary during this session. But Gary, just so feel free to put in any queries you've got in the chat box now. So Gary, just one further question that came in a little while ago. Just for higher handicappers who are pretty close to the edge of the green, say no more than 3 or 5 yards, they're duffing a lot, they're thinning, they're just messing up shots and really ruining kind of potentially good scores. What's the safe kind of club to use when you're, a few yards away, you're not maybe that confident about your short game? What's the safest club?
That's a very interesting term, really. The word safe and golf kind of don't go together. It's like, I'm going to hit this sort of iron off the tee for safety. I'm going to, just keep it safe. Well, and so to me, every motion in golf is all about positivity and almost controlled aggression, not in a powerful way, but in an attitudinal way. So to me, when you're talking about sort of, sorry, what was the question once more?
So it's really for someone who's within a few yards of the green.
Yeah, a few yards of the green.
They want to get down in 2 and they're not sure whether they should be.
So exactly. So club selection.
Club selection, yeah.
There's no safe club. I mean, you can chip and run it, you can putt it. A lot of people will putt off the green. I've played with plenty of them putt 50 yards from the green because they don't have a short game, they're scared. If you go through the routine, as my videos show you, and have a sensible time scale, anyone can hit a chip or a pitch, right? We don't need strength, we just need these things, really. Or even just that one will do. There's a few players I play with, one I play a lot with, and he just uses his right hand. And he's really very good. It doesn't matter, it's great. But anyone can do it. But when you're talking about a club, I use all the clubs in the bag in short game apart from the driver and the 3-wood. I probably don't use the 3 or 4 iron, but I use 5 iron upwards, everything else. And if you have a technique, every golf club has different characteristics on what the ball will do, and you want to use that advantage. I call it my toolkit. Those are my tools, and I want to use them. But if you're talking about sensible approach to short game, and if you look at my video, it talks about the 4 stations to get you into position of learning the technique, and then gradually through the 4 stations, ramping it up to the ultimate pressure, like on the golf course. So you can go back and forward, no pressure, loads of pressure. So when you do get this very important shot in a medal, and you find yourself gripping, you'll be able to go, well, I'm in control of my grip pressure. So when you're talking about, how to do it, building a good fundamental in short game, building good technique, practice the right way, and then you'll use all the golf clubs. There's no point hitting a chip and run through bad lies and long grass because that's the only shot you've got, when actually the sensible thing is to hit a little 60 or 56 and land it on a lovely flat surface and roll to the green. So it's all about learning how to play these shots and committing to that process. So you've opened up a whole new spectrum of possibilities in short game. Yeah, sure, if you haven't got a short game, chip it, putt it. Of course you can do that. But your handicap's going to reflect that, and so is your score.
Thanks, Gary. Again, I'm just saying if anyone wants to raise any questions, feel free. Gary, actually, I think I'm seeing some coming through here now, so just bear with me. Sorry. Actually, I have quite a few. Sorry, I took my eye off the ball there momentarily.
It's fine. It gives me a little break.
Yeah. Just take a rest there. Okay, Gary, from Tom Suddes, reference practicing into a net. Quotes from Carl Pearson on Twitter. Everyone hitting into practice nets will quickly discover they've perfected a massive block or hook when they get back onto the golf course. Can I please ask for your take on this comment?
Okay, how to practice in a net.
Yeah.
Again, I'm going back into separation, the difference in approach between the committed players that play professionally and the club golfer. And I can't get across this point too strongly, and that is that the average professional is working on a motion, and they wouldn't just hit balls unless they're trying to do something. But I just go and hit balls, willy-nilly. It's just exhausting and maybe fun, but what is it achieving? I mean, fun is obviously a very important part of it. It's probably the most important thing. But if you want to play better, and who doesn't, then you need to distinguish hitting balls to improving your golf game. It's a big difference. Tour pros, if they're going to go into a net, and they would hit shots in nets, I bet they're doing it right now in around the country, around the world, they're working on understanding what they're trying to improve. And they would video, and they would, I'd get players send me videos all the time, and they would send their videos to their coaches to say, well, what do you think? So you've got to distinguish between hitting the ball well and improving your action. And if you're whatever your handicap, you want to get better. If you're +4 or +5, you want to get to +6. I mean, that's just common sense. So it's just the way we're built. So get a goal in not just your golf game, but your golf improvement. Work on things that, based on stats, show that you're lacking. So it could be, Luke Donald did a great thing a year or two ago about his putting when he was world way up there. He was world number 1 from 3 feet, 4 feet, number 2 from 5 and 6 feet, 8 feet, number 4, 5 to 10 feet, 10 to 12 feet, he was number 156. So you kind of think, straight away, it's like, whoa, I need to work on that. So rather than, go out and practice your long game or whatever, which is good, understand the areas that your game is bringing your scores you know, up, and your handicap up as well. So work on the things that matter, and then hitting balls is really just an end result, really. I mean, you look at the Swedes, Scandinavians, when the game got going 30, 40 years ago, they couldn't play in the winter. So they just basically practiced in video in nets and worked on stuff that was important to them. And I think that should apply right now. So don't get too bogged down about, am I hitting it good? You know, use your poles for your line, work on fundamentals, on motions, keep bedding them in, work on your exercises and your stretching, and we'll keep that going as well, whatever it takes. You know, and I'm sure there's loads of information out there for you, and certainly I can help if I can. And then don't be too hung up about whether you can hit it good or not in the net, because the net is not relevant. What is relevant is when you play.
Thanks, Gary. Just a quick question here from Andrew, just asking about the promotion on the Academy website. I think it's up there, but if it's not, it's just worth adding. The promotion is essentially a deal for the next 12 months at half price, £47, which includes full access to the Academy for a year, as well as any Zoom golf lessons that Gary will be conducting over the coming weeks and months, plus any new video content. And it's probably worth adding as well, in fact, Gary, I think you've got 8 modules in the linear approach, and the first 5 of those modules involve a lot of practice indoors, at home, or in your garden without actually hitting a golf ball. So a lot of the techniques you're referencing now and ingraining that so that you're a lot more comfortable when you get out in the golf course, it's covered in those modules in the linear approach. And I certainly, and this is not a sales pitch, but I'm using it myself now, and I genuinely would encourage everyone to get into the initial modules in the linear approach. You don't have to hit a ball, and it's guaranteed to improve your game. Just moving on, Gary, a question from Paul McLaughlin here. Paul's a 5 handicapper. He struggles with the first move off the ball on the backswing. He tends to hood the club. Any tips and drills for getting the first move right in the backswing?
Tends to hood it, yeah. Just before, I think Jerry, who's been involved in business for a number of years, Jerry is very much the business end of the whole thing. So, you know, well done, Jerry, for pushing that side. To me, I'm into trying to get people to, you know, do the right thing and enjoy their games more. But it's right that, you know, we have someone like Jerry who I'm involved with, because he keeps me on the straight and narrow. Okay, tennis racket, or a little garden sort of racket, really. So what are we looking to do in a backswing? We're looking to work the chest, the upper body, certainly the left pec muscle, this area here, left shoulder, and this here, left pec, really into a position here where the club face, you can see, of the racket is correct. We're not looking to steepen the shoulders, so if you've got a posture like this, your shoulders are going to be steep, your sort of club head or your racket is going to reflect that. Equally, if you're here, you're probably going to be wide open. So getting a good balance point, getting stable, staying stable, working your left pec correctly to here, and then to there, and then to there, is what this is all about, because this is the blueprint of your golf swing. So if you get this part right, it's like a dart player. If you can get this bit right here, you just let go. Snooker players or tennis players, if you can get this position here, you just time it and sequence it to deliver. So it's all about starting correctly. So the tennis players that tend to go a bit like that, don't use their body, you know, rather than the better tennis players are going to start turning and using their bodies correctly. It's just athletic. If you can build that into your golf game, then you'll be better. And I talked about this last time. I'm a great believer with good players in what the right forearm does. The right forearm should set the plane of the swing. There. So the right forearm rotates and folds for good players, every player really, but this is a good player's motion. Rotate and fold really sets the backswing correctly. And that's what I would be doing. So if you've got a bad grip, if you've got a strong grip, where you can see loads of knuckles and your hands are in effect under the club, sure, you're going to hood it. So check that, check you've got a nice neutral grip. Get this forearm working correctly. Stay stable without tilting. So nothing moves here. Absolutely nothing's moved at all. Lower body. Absolutely nothing. And now I can set the plane, and now I can work the powerful coil. Nigel and Rupert with that band. Hard work, but I'm ready to play now. I can't not hit a good shot from there, really.
Great, thanks, Gary. Just a couple of more questions here, just to run through them. A question from Tim Jones. Gary, he's looking to order some new wedges, 50, 54, 58 loft. Can you explain the effective bounce and how best to decide which is best for you?
Tim, thank you. It's a pretty complicated thing, bounce. You can go on the Vokey website. The Titleist Vokey website explains it a bit more detail with the options. But it depends on the golf course. If I said to you, and you don't want to hear this probably, but tour pros would probably have 40 or 50 different wedges for different conditions. Different lofts, different bounces. It depends on the green. If you've got small green for runoffs, you need a 60, 62, like a Nicholson 64. If you've got, you don't have that luxury. So go for a medium high bounce, I would say in your 56. Go for 8 to 10 degrees bounce if you're going above that. If you're going to use it in the bunkers, you still remember I talked to the good players I work with about bounce. You can always shave it off and fart it off, grind it off. You can't add to it really. You can open the blade, but you don't want to do too much of that. But I would say something like a 8 to 10 degrees in your high wedges, 54. Go to something like about 10 to 14, and then if you go down into your 50s and so on, again go for medium highish bounce. Because as I talk about, and those who maybe don't know really what the bounce is this little chap here. It's the angle that you create there between the back edge and the front edge. So now I've got this exposed. Luke Donald talks about exposing the bounce and using it. Absolutely right. Can't use it from there. I'm only going to use this. So that's why you shouldn't have your hands forward. So yeah, look at those. I think mine, I've got something, what's this? This is a 60 with 14 degrees of bounce. I like bounce because I can always reduce it a little bit just by having a little bit of hands forward. So if I'm playing in hard conditions in the summer, I'd move the ball back an inch, I'd have the hand slightly forward, and I would then have a slightly steeper angle of attack. I call it just to pinch the ball. But in normal conditions, nice shallow angle, exposed to the bounce, have more bounce than less. I'm a great believer that bounce is your best friend.
Just one more question, Gary.
Sure.
From Colin Matthews, who's always used a ping answer putter, which is, as you know, is offset. Is the offset putter the best type of putter to have?
Colin, I'd put it this way. If it was the best type of putter to have, we'd all be using it. So that is why the manufacturers, I'd be the first one to sign up. The manufacturers produce hundreds and thousands of different styles. And if you look on tour, they're all using different styles, shapes, weights, lengths, lies. They're all different. My advice would be, if you can start the ball on the line correctly, if you're a good judge of pace, sensibly, just running at the hole nicely, not going miles past all the time, or leaving it way short. If you can do that, it doesn't matter what you use. It really doesn't. I mean, I've been using a long putter for some time. I've gone back to a short one, which I'm enjoying. It really doesn't matter the style of putter you use, but I would get fitted. I use a guy called Jason McNiven at Golf Principles in Basingstoke, who I send all my students to. He's absolutely great. He's good fun, and he's an expert, a golf professional, but he's the best there is in the field. He does putter fitting as well as club fitting. Little plug for Jason there. But I mean, yeah, get fitted, get one that really does the job, the weight, and the one that you like the look of, that sits correctly. Having said that, you remember Isao Aoki, I think it's Aoki was his name. He had a putter like that. It was like so much off the ground. This bit, only this touched the ground, and he putted great. Ken Brown had a style that used to jab into the ground all the time. Great putter. So really, can you start the ball on line? Use this little drill, the gate drill like that. If you can do it regularly, doesn't matter whether it's offset or straight or whatever, it really doesn't matter, but it's a good thing to get fitted.
Okay, I think we're just there, Gary. If I could just say to people, we've had a number of requests to see if we could move the time to maybe when people are finished work. So obviously there are people out and about. And we've also had some requests from the US market to try and come up with a more user-friendly time. So we're suggesting that our next Zoom session will be on Thursday again at 5 o'clock, 5 p.m. this time. But we'll certainly email everybody. Just drop an email if you have any questions, whether it's about the Academy or anything, in terms of future questions for Gary, to support at GarySmithGolfAcademy.com. Gary, I'd like to thank you again for taking the time. I mean, you're welcome for the full hour. And obviously to thank everybody for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the session, and we look forward to seeing you next week, next Thursday at 5 p.m. Thanks very much, everyone.
Great.
Enjoy the day. Keep safe. Thank you. Take care.
Okay.